over i et andet link.
All right, everybody, welcome to your favorite Tuesday channel on LinkedIn, which is, of course, the Acti Game Events. And we are here and we are happy. The sun is shining. We are still pretending that it's summer, holding on to the very last little pieces of it at least, and sort of showing up without winter coats on quite yet, and leaving the rain jacket at home because we are optimistic it will not rain. So let's just pretend in that mindset. It is a great Tuesday, the sun is shining, and it's still summer. Woo!
Agree. And Caroline is having 24 degrees on a cold day.
That's like a whole different level. But
I'm also 3,000 kilometers south of you, so
yeah,
it's also a journey to get there.
Yeah.
If everybody who is tuning in, and we are so happy that you are here, if you would like to just write in the comment hello and maybe where you're tuning in from, that would be grand to see who's joining us today. And while everybody is getting comfortable, maybe they're just grabbing a cup of coffee or getting the music set up to the headphones instead of the car, or whatever they may be doing, I am going to make a very quick introduction to our very esteemed guests today, which is Caroline Kure here up in the top little window of our screen. And Caroline is actually a PhD fellow at the Roskilde University, and she is part of the Game for Green project that Acti is also working with. And Caroline, I was actually hoping that you would maybe introduce yourself a little bit, both you and of course this article that you wrote, which created the theoretical layer of the Acti game we're going to be playing today, but maybe also introducing a little bit about what is Game for Green, or G for G as we call it in Acti.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a PhD fellow, which essentially works out to be a research apprentice within Roskilde University, where I'm specifically hired within the Game for Green project. And the Game for Green project is a consortium between Roskilde University, researchers from Roskilde University, and Acti, and another company called Provise, where we work to try and figure out how we can use serious games for sustainability behavioral interventions and change, so that we can all become more sustainable in our everyday lives. So this involves like behavioral change and behavioral design theory. It involves some behavioral psychology. It involves like change management, all within this umbrella that we put into essentially these digital serious games through the Acti platform. So the article that we are working with here is an article that came about because we tested our very first prototype at a municipal event with one of our municipal contributors. And we found in our data that we could see that there were different ways people navigated these sustainability changes. So not just that they made the change, but how they made the change, which made us curious for all of these ways that we navigate from A to B, where essentially the journey in between is often neglected in research. So we took our data and we went into our research library, and we found a lot of interesting literature from which we conceptualized these 8 pathways essentially for how we go from wanting to become more sustainable, wanting to change our behavior, to actually having made the change, and identified 8 different ways that we go about this, which involves negotiation, involves goal setting, utilizing the infrastructure around you. It also involves such things such as like generational change and evolutionary change in your life, and how we can navigate all of these complexities in a way where we don't burn out on the way, because that is obviously often a concern when we want to make sustainability changes, that we try to do too much, and the dialogue around it is always very close to you have to be perfect from the beginning, which is contributing to making it very hard. So what we were trying to do with this article was identify ways that we can do it in a much more manageable and sustainable way, so that it becomes something that we can do a little at a time and still make an impact.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I'm thinking that's what, like, that's music to your ears, right? Life, this step by step. Let's take it slow. We're not perfect from the beginning.
Yeah, it is. And I think, Caroline, I think the 8 pathways that you are referring to is what we are also going to be playing in the game, because I found it, when you created it, I found it very interesting that you actually came up with, out of Game for Green, 8 different approaches to green changes, and we had a discussion today at the office. Maybe either you had a great question that I wouldn't be able to answer, but you should be answering that, Caroline. So either maybe you want to ask that good question.
Yeah, of course. We'll
Absolutely.
get going straight away. No loose introduction questions, anything. We'll just knock it ahead, right?
Yeah.
So I was playing your game earlier, or the game with your theoretical layer earlier, and I was thinking these pathways that you have written, these 8 pathways that you guys will all experience when you enter the game, that this is not just sustainability focused, right? Like, you could use this theoretical layer probably in any change management. Or
Absolutely.
what do you think?
Absolutely. So the article itself is called, let me see here, Becoming Sustainable. Sorry, let me just find the title here. Becoming Sustainable Through Pathway Practices in Serious Games, a Household Perspective. Because we don't have within information systems literature a whole lot of literature that deals with households.
Caroline, it sounds like your mic is struggling a little bit. Your mic is struggling a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. Is this better?
Can you? Yeah, it's better.
It sounds better. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. But yeah, so the article Becoming Sustainable Through Pathway Practices in Serious Games is about the household perspective, but it deals a lot with also organizational change management theory, because we based it off of this understanding that behavioral change in general, not just for sustainability change, but as a general whole, is often seen as a linear pathway. It is moving from point A to point B, and like going straight in between. But that's not how life works in reality. Very often it involves all of these like social interactions, all of these negotiations between us and our surroundings and our social communities. And that was also what we found, that while we were looking at literature that specifically looked at sustainability areas and sustainability change, many of these ways of going about change affects much more than just like the sustainability area itself. So one example that we found in the literature, for example, was a dorm room in China, where they had done a study with sensors on the trash bins to see whether or not the students would sort their trash better before the sensors relative to after the sensors. And what they found was that both the students sorted their trash better, but also it created the social change within the community of the dorm building, where the students started reminding each other, remember, we are a collective about sorting our trash. And from this, it actually also grew a meal situation where people started eating together and shopping together and having community meals to a much greater degree, because it also helped them contribute to lowering their overall what's the word I'm looking for? Consumption of both like food and waste management and stuff like that. So it affects much more than just the sustainability area. Absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds like the basically the dream outcome. You replace one thing, and all of a sudden your entire community becomes sustainability oriented in everything they do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was a very interesting study, definitely. Yeah.
But I think, Caroline, in term, we're going to play the game in a second. I don't know how much theoretic introduction we're going to give when we play the game, but I took myself, I gave myself the task of trying to organize your 8 pathways into a gamified context, and I think I squeezed it a little bit. But what you're talking about there is falling within my categories of calling behavior and habits. It's not mine. Yeah. I just took them. I don't know if you would make the same cut as I did, but I took it into the behavioral and habit area, where I kind of thought that there are some things. You write that in your article, that something are happening in that area of habits and behavioral science, where it's more like social interactions, it's group dynamics, it's how we perceiving ourselves, and the other thing is more like technical things. You can buy a new garbage bin if we stay with the same.
Exactly.
And there are these 2 different sides of your 8 pathways. Do you agree to that?
Absolutely, and it also completely depends on how you want to use them. For example, so in a private household where we are much fewer people, it's much more of an individual negotiation and an individual conversation for how we implement these things and how we walk through them within this family unit, this household unit. Whereas if you have a much larger conglomeration, say a dorm building, for example, or a collective apartment building, where the systems are much more collective, such as the trash sorting, for example. Like each apartment has their own systems, but then the building itself also has a system that allows you to continue the trash sorting further in the dispersal route. And one of the things that are also very important there is, as a household, of course, you need to evaluate how you go about doing all of these things. But as a building that needs to do stuff collectively, you also need to consider how you inform about these things. And it raises the perspective of where in the chain and where in the like hierarchy of the social situation you are implementing these things, and whether we are talking exactly about structural and technical frameworks or behavior and habits, where information about how we have improved, for example, the trash sorting facilities in the building is absolutely a structural and technical framework component. But the goal in the end is always to create behavior and habits, which is how it feeds into each other.
Yeah, so you're also trying to kind of get away from the concept and idea that you do one thing and then you do the next, and then like almost like a cutaway of changing, but you kind of argue for the fact that those type of changes in the green area are intertwined with a lot of areas, like the 8 pathways. You can't like look at one. You have to understand that sometimes they influence partially all 8 or some of the 8 or so. Isn't that correct also?
Exactly. And I think this is part of the like complexity that is often missed when we're talking about sustainability change, that it is so intertwined and that it affects everything. Like it's very easy to say I'm going to bike to work tomorrow, but if biking to work means that you don't have time to deliver your kids to school, then biking to work might be environmentally sustainable, but it's not socially sustainable. And all of these things kind of get lost in translation, because we're always talking about how we can be more green, and without considering the whole collective of the sustainability understanding, essentially. And what we're trying to do with these pathways is basically boil it down to different ways we negotiate with our surroundings and these existing habits to create the change, so that we don't miss all of the things that it affects on the way.
And just maybe we should go back and look at the game, Ida. But this is Ida just brought up the 8 pathways here as they look like in the game, where they have been added in and so they will be part of the game. We're going to play around with them in the game, because what I don't want you to stand in front of, Caroline, because you wrote the article and I actually took the article without asking you and alter it into a game. So there might be elements of the game and of how that is altered in that you don't think is absolutely correct. But it's a way of showing or using like theoretic academic work into a game context, and that's what this game is all about, is taking your great articles that was very inspiring for me and try to create a game on top of that and giving players an idea about these 8 pathways once they play.
Absolutely, and it's always about interpretation. So seeing my work in action like this is very, very interesting. I think it's a very great game.
Thank you. Yeah, let's, Ida, do you want to take us back to...
I'm going to take us a few steps back. I'm not taking us all the way back because I think we've already surpassed our time of speaking about Acti. I'm sorry, Leif. The dream slide will have to wait till next Tuesday.
Yep.
So the game that you guys are going to get the link for in a minute is a game, of course, based on these pathway practices that we've just talked about. To give you a little bit of background information, you have been selected in this game to be in charge of kind of making some sustainability initiatives move forward in your consulting company. So you're not advising other people about how they should be more green, but it's an internal project that you're dealing with. And basically, you have these 2 goals that you need to balance, and it is to reduce consumption, of course, but it's also to reduce costs. And that's the spin, because if you could reduce consumption but raise the costs, I think it would be a really, really easy game. But you have to, of course, like in real life, consider that you are a company, you have some kind of economic budgets that you need to take care of and be able to live within. So you have 2 goals you need to keep in mind: consumption and costs. And without even more, you have these little stakeholders. I'm going to show you in the game board in a minute, but you have stakeholders that are reacting to every single one of your choices. And of course, you want your people to be on your team. You want them to help. It just makes everything easier. But you will also realize that if you make one choice that a stakeholder doesn't like, then they will oppose. Then they will not be helpful. And that is, again, this challenge in trying to balance culture and results, you know? So as always, it's equally complex as to real life. And the theory layers that are in the game we have just touched upon, but I think we will talk and dive a little bit more into this as we are playing, so it makes more sense doing it that way. And I'm going to ask Leif and Caroline, I sent you both the session link, but if you could log in, then I'm going to just quickly show our participants how they log in when they receive the link, and then we will be ready to go.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So in a minute, you're going to receive a link. And if you're on the computer, the link is clickable. If you're on the mobile phone, then you actually have to use the session ID. But in the message we send, it will explain how you do it. So when you click the link, you get to this guest profile, and all you do is you write your name. You also have to choose a position. It's not super relevant for here, but it gives a really, really cool layer to the host view, and maybe we have time to dive into that. So join the session. You will arrive at the game. It's called the Green Pulse. And you simply click play game, and you are actually off. But before I leave you completely to yourself, I would like to just explain the game board, which is this barometer, as we showed you earlier. You have your stakeholders moving in the barometer so you can keep track of them. You can also click in on them so you can read exactly how they are reacting to your choices. And then you can see on these 2 bars down here, if you are reducing your costs and reducing your consumption, if your team is with you, and if you're reaching your goal. All right, I think that is the information you need to get going. So I will ask my colleague to please send out the link, and you guys can start playing the game. All right, Leif and Caroline, have you managed to get into the game?
They have.
I am.
Great.
I made my first option. I'm kind of excited to see what I have taken, what you have taken, Caroline.
Okay, so maybe I should explain that in the chapters are separated into 3 sections. There are 3 chapters, each with a focus. The first focus is on water, if I remember correctly, about how are you going to consume less water energy. And you have 50 hours that you can sort of use. And how have you gone about that?
Well,
Carolina, would you like to start, or Leif? You go ahead.
I just wanted to say that it's a consulting company, and we are in charge of saving more water and more in the first chapter. And I've just made one option in the first chapter so far. And I think, Caroline, have you made one? Have you made your option too?
I
One
have made
option?
an option too. Yes.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
I've spent, I can't remember how many hours I spent, but I've spent some of my time. And what did you choose? We might have chosen the same.
No, you did not.
What
I
did you
chose the
choose?
eco option.
Which one is that? I'm interested.
Eco program project.
Mm.
So that's the dishwasher, setting it to the
Yes.
eco program. The
Exactly.
small changes.
Why did you choose that one?
In part because it was talking about job satisfaction as well, and I was waffling a little between this and the no more water bottles situation.
Which is the one you chose, right, Leif?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Indeed. And what I was thinking about was that when we make these changes, incremental change is usually the way forward. We like kill them with kindness, so to speak. So we don't bomb them with everything at once or with the big uncomfortable changes at one to begin with. We give them like the small changes, and this is going to make the dishwasher slower, but it's going to save water and it's going to save electricity at the same time. And then maybe we can move on to the bottles further on when people have gotten used to the idea that they might not be as sustainable an option.
I was kind of going in the other direction, Carolina. I was kind of thinking, okay, what would I do? What would I go with first? And I'm a visual person, so I was thinking all the bottles on the tables annoy me. I think it's such a polluting thing. I can't have it standing there, and so I went with that one. That's a physical sign of things are changing. So that was my stomach talking there. So, and
that was a very personal choice for you, Leif.
It was.
That went deep, I could tell.
Yeah, we actually did that at Acti. We removed all of the cans from. Suddenly, we had cans, so many of them, and I just felt it was such a waste of the world's resources. But in terms of your article, Caroline, where does those two options go?
I would think like interpreting my choice for the dishwasher situation, I would call that utilizing the infrastructure, where I think the water bottle situation would be more along the lines of negotiating. Because you can make that decision, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your colleagues are going to be amazingly happy about it to begin with. So I think how it would hit would be a negotiating situation where you would have to negotiate with your colleagues about getting that through. But otherwise, I think it would also be about the evolutionary change perspective of the whole thing, because obviously there would need to be a replacement option of some sort that would need to be either marketed as already existing or purchased into the company to replace the bottles that would otherwise be dispersed to the employees.
So would you say that there is more of a specific order in which you should use these pathways?
Not necessarily. I mean, obviously everything I'm going to say in this game is going to be colored by my own perspective and my own opinions. And it is very much an individual process how you decide to go about these things. I know some people who would be much more prone to start out, for example, with exercising creativity on something and figuring out where they would like to be sustainable and how they could go about being sustainable. So essentially dreaming up the different ways they could make the change to begin with, what kinds of changes they want to make, and then go straight into goal setting for how to like keep this change sustainable, how to sustain it and make it a habit by challenging themselves with goal setting in that direction. And obviously, when you are working with creativity, you would obviously, depending on the kind of sustainability action, you would also be looking at the kind of infrastructure and the kind of social networks you have to support those changes at the same time. So I think, again, it's all very much a network. But it would probably mostly start in the whole negotiation, conversation, creativity space for a lot of us.
Yeah. And the goal setting also probably comes somewhat near the front and not
Absolutely.
always at the very end.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was kind of trying and looking into the people who is reacting to our initiatives, and I could see, for sure, Anna from marketing, she got pretty mad at me for removing the bottles. She went all the way back to -24, so she is not satisfied with my option of choosing to remove the bottles. So, and I was kind of thinking, okay, so how can that be? So is she just not thinking? But she's actually saying, her comment is, I don't see the reason for this. How do we move forward? She's kind of mad at me, so I might think a little bit about how to ease her up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think
I have similar responses here. No, it's just I have similar responses here. I have Mikkel, who is saying we need to change the focus. Okay. He didn't go quite as far back as Sarah, who surprisingly is saying I feel good despite having receded all the way to 28. But they all went down in points, that's for sure.
Okay, yeah, but they're still like in between red and yellow, which is like okay, they're still there. But let's see. I'm kind of curious. I could nick your eco program to spend my next 10 hours on. I have 35 hours left. How many hours do you have left, Caroline?
40, I think. Yeah, Ooh. 40.
Oh, okay. So you also spent less time than me.
I did.
Right. If I can ask you guys to finish the first chapter, so make your next 2 choices, I think you will have left if you have that many hours going.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting in these reactions, that please just, you guys keep playing the game. I'm just going to speak over you. What's really interesting about these reactions is if you get to know the characters before you start playing the game. So, for example, Anne, the marketing manager that is against life, is actually in a personal state, really for the green agenda and changing the way they do things at work. But it's also saying here that her marketing manager also makes her very interested in visibility and image. So she's also very much like, okay, well, we're doing a green initiative, but if we're not marketing it, if it's not visible out there, then we're not really doing anything. And that's an interesting extra thing you can kind of add on, that every person has a personal agenda as well that is somehow fitting in to the change. And how you deal with that, of course, is not a roadmap. That's a little more difficult. All right.
I would argue, Caroline, I don't know if you agree, but I would argue that actually this agenda is different from many other changes because it also influences our layer of values. So we can feel very, very attacked on a personal level if we don't do it in the way, or if we do it too much because I don't agree on the agenda.
I completely agree. It can be a very personal thing, and it is one of the things that we actually ran into in a game test we conducted with one of our what's the word I'm missing? One of our prototypes. That we were told that the wording, the way we had worded certain choices in the game, actually affected people's personal opinions of the game and made them feel like they were being asked to essentially put their employer's sustainability footprint ahead of their own careers, which did not feel good for them. And obviously, we don't want to put people in a position where they feel like they are being asked to sacrifice their own growth and their own personal career goals for sustainability goals that won't be a part of what they are evaluated on by their employers.
Yeah, I think that's Colleen. We have been doing a lot of things under the Game for Green hat together, and I also remember. I think it might be the same discussion. Of course, we can't disclose what it was about, but there was also this concept of paying a bill on your private life to become more sustainable. Basically, because it can impact my time with my family if I have to go somewhere on my bicycle or whatever. Then it could actually influence my time, my private time, and it could also influence how I'm perceived at the workplace, depending on how I'm doing. And that was a great dilemma to put forward in this.
Exactly, and in this case, the game was about consultancy travel. So when you travel to meet with a client, it obviously will be a lot faster to fly, but if it's possible to take the train, that was the goal of the company, to essentially incentivize their employees to take the train or to go hybrid instead and do virtual sessions, just as we're doing here. But it would impact the private lives of the employees a lot, which was one thing that had not really been taken into consideration when we started the game planning.
What do you think, Colleen, in that? I'm kind of curious. Do you think there is any way of overcoming those paradoxes or dilemmas, or is it simply something that the organization or the company needs to decide? Can you actually open that discussion? Of course, you can reflect on how it's affecting us, but is it something?
So you're asking if the company can essentially decide that people should sacrifice private time for travel like that, for example?
Yeah, I'm more thinking, do the company, is there a way to have those paradoxes alongside in a huge organization, or will the company be needing to make a decision on the green agenda for the good of the green and for the worse of your career or personal life? You don't have to.
I think if we're looking at it from a completely green perspective, the ideal would be that they made the decision, but obviously that will make them a less attractive workplace. So it is something that needs to go hand in hand. I also think with the developments that we've had with regards to remote work and hybrid working situations, that I know that there's currently a push to get people back into the offices, but by embracing the whole remote understanding of we can do our work from our laptops anywhere, I think that could be a way to compromise and get the greener agenda while not necessarily compromising private time quite so much, because the travel time in itself will become work time.
I think it's a really interesting discussion, and I'm wondering, isn't that also the type of discussions you would have of this game? Now we are taking Offsprings because we are part of the Game for Green. We have other things, but if you played this game within an organization, wouldn't you have the same type of discussion if you were thinking, I don't know what you took in this game, but I was kind of, when I took my last choice, I was thinking I'm very much on the behavioral side in my options. I do not buy a new technical thing into the organization. I go with all the behavioral type of choices. There might be other people like thinking, why should we change our behavior that much? Why don't we just buy new stuff? And it's much better for the environment, in the environment and so on.
I think I am partial to put on the catchphrase, but reuse, reduce, recycle. So ideally, I would also not go out and buy all sorts of new equipment unless, like, for example, I chose the rainwater barrel as one of my choices. That would obviously be a new purchase. But it would also mean that we would stop like drawing on water resources that could be used elsewhere, because we would be using rainwater for example, watering outside, or for if we manage to draw in enough rainwater, pressure washing the bike sheds, which was another choice that I made in this. So I think in that case, I am also on the habit side, but more I think I'm also on improving the infrastructure where we can, like making sure the upkeep and the maintenance is all right, so that the things we do have live as long as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You actually.
I'm just pulling up your data here. I'm seeing that you are almost all yellow now.
Okay. Yeah. So that's
Yes.
a good sign that we have moved everybody into the yellow area. Nice.
Yeah, your people are with you.
Can we see the profile? Could we just see each one of our profile at this stage also? Could you move
Sure,
into?
where are you?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. So you're a little bit more scattered, Life.
I am. But that's because you are
Still
still on the
very close to the yellow.
You have to take the last. Yeah, exactly. Ooh,
My
look
bad.
at that. Look
Apologize.
at that. I need a sound for that one.
Okay. Life, you're not supposed to choose your own sound.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
But I was thinking, if you press on profile, I'm kind of curious if I actually was making a lot of behavioral choices in this the yellow mark just below that one, further down. Profile in the bottom of your screen.
Of course. Sorry. There you go.
And if we then take Caroline and me.
There we go.
For the interesting, and then maybe
Life,
take
you're
the
blue, Caroline, you're green.
Yeah, green. You make more green choices, but this is a model that we just added in. So, but it makes a lot of sense that Caroline is much more green than I am.
Definitely.
Can you open up and then take pathway practices 2? No, the other one, maybe the other one.
Yeah.
But this one, because then you can see the two. Okay.
So the red is behavior, and the blue is structural and technical frameworks. And Life, you are the outside circle.
Yeah.
Caroline, your choices are represented in the inside circle.
Yeah, you are actually right, Caroline, that you took actually more technical choices than I did so far in chapter 1.
Yeah, that is interesting. I did make one like behavior choice, but mostly infrastructural. Yes.
And do you think there is like a better way? Like, is it better to start with the structural, the infrastructural and technical frameworks before you address the behavior? Should you mix and match it? Or there's no real go-to path of how you should do this?
I think again it's very individual. For my situation, I have ADHD. So one of the things that I really struggle with is consistent behavior. And by setting up my surroundings and my infrastructure to support the behavior I want, it becomes much easier for me to sustain a behavior over a longer period of time. So in my case, making all of the structural and like those framework choices to begin with will help me make the behavior choices later on, which I think is why my choices look the way they do here. I think also in the case of the organization that we're working with in here, things that make the organization more sustainable and make it easier for the employees to be more sustainable without adding to their cognitive load is always an advantage.
Definitely.
So basically, you're saying that for you would actually need to, if you should think about consistency in behavior, you would probably go with some structural choices first before adding behavior. Is that correct?
Exactly.
If you can do that, I know it's a rough segmentation, but if you should do that segmentation, then the flow would be start thinking about, is there anything, is your surrounding supporting a specific behavior?
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's great.
That would absolutely be my first choice.
And that's a fun way to think about workplaces too. to be honest, and also as a consultant, if a consultant is working with the green area, to start with that reflection. Do we actually have surrounding supporting a green transition? I mean, we can bicycle everyone from work to somewhere, but do we actually have the bikes down there? Would be like the level 1. If you want to remove all the cans and bottles, do you have anything else in place that can replace it to
Exactly.
make
If we want to go more hybrid, do we have enough meeting rooms that support larger hybrid meetings?
yeah that's that's actually a good advice to anyone. And it's an interesting reflection, just regardless of what type of green changes that you're in the middle of.
But it makes sense. They are nudging us in the supermarkets, in museums, in stores. Why also not nudge sustainability in the workplace? That should
Exactly.
really be a key takeaway from this event.
Yeah, I
All
also
right.
use the nudging. I'm kind of keen on the score, Caroline. Are you also keen on the score?
A little bit. A little bit.
A little bit. That's.
All right. I am just going to get you two back up
Caroline,
here.
you are in front.
Okay.
Ever so slightly.
Ever so slightly.
But that's unfair.
I'm
doing
Carolina
my
only
best.
made the framework. You made the game live.
You chose how to score things.
Yeah.
Something is wrong with this game. There is something wrong with this game. Okay.
Send it to the tech.
Yeah, I've not been able to win, not even one time in these game events. Okay, I'm going to beat you in the next 2 chapters, Caroline.
So if you could move on and
I'll
actually
take on the
use
challenge.
all of your choices for chapter 2.
Yeah.
Because time is, as always, slipping away with us. But the next chapter is, again, you have 50 hours, and it's now on the focus of heating. So the office has a very high heat consumption. It's an old building. I think we've all at least tried to be in an old building where the heat's not working and you're taking off your sweater and putting it on 1,000,002 times and closing and opening windows all day. And it just gets so frustrating to work in. And the employees are really complaining as well about the indoor climate here in your little game company. So now you have yet another section of options about how you would like to spend your 50 hours of resources. And while you guys do that, I'm just going to look a little bit at some of the other players we have going.
I'm not doing a great job.
All right.
Damn.
Okay, so it looks like Maureen is actually ahead. And we have Frog.
we're getting beat out.
Oh, but they have finalized the game. We still have an option to go, Caroline. We haven't finalized chapter 3 yet.
Fair enough.
So
you can pat yourself on the shoulder for a little while longer, life. You haven't completely lost yet.
Exactly, and we need.
All right.
Let's see. Ooh, Caroline, I don't like that.
She hasn't even made the last choice yet, live.
Have you not? But maybe she has spent.
Or maybe you spent resources differently.
Have you made your last choice? Do you have any resources left, Caroline?
5 hours. When I click next, I go to chapter 3. So I should have made all the choices.
You are also done.
Okay. Yeah.
And you are very clearly in front.
Life is now. No, is she? Oh my God.
So we can see here, maybe Life, actually, you would like to explain a little bit about these 2 barometers in the bottom and what they exactly are showing compared to the full barometer view.
In Game for Green, we kind of from the very beginning realized that when we create games, normally when you create our games, they are always built on a theoretic layer, which means that you are taking a behavioral science theory, you add that into a game context, and you can always discuss the outcome. So how do you know when a leadership approach is democratic, or when is a leadership approach leadership and not managerial? So those discussions can be in the room, but when you go into green transitions, there are actually some things that should not be discussable, or at least to the same extent as if it's behavioral changes. And that comes down to, is it better to use LED bulbs than regular bulbs? There is actually calculations and green arguments that you need to take into considerations in games. And for that, some of these options here are actually verified by Provise, who has a specialty within those calculations. So we have calculated the options, and we have reused options from other games where we know that using LED is better than others. And we have even made a fine scoring schema to support those decisions, because that's the difference in creating games that are supportive of a green agenda. You have to be knowing that what you're telling people is actually correct in terms of supporting the green environment.
Exactly.
So that's why the reduced consumption and reduced cost is calculated on these options. And how we created the game, it's actually, when I say I did it with Anders Thorup, which is our colleague at Acti, and he's a huge part of the game design here. He's the specialist on it. But what we did is that we actually reused options from other games, from Game to Green. So we knew the calculation prior to creating this game. So the consumption and the reduced cost is calculated. It's not one-to-one calculated, but we know the calculation in the game. So.
All right, thank you. Now I'm a little bit curious, actually, on what choices you made. Carolina, I started with you here.
Yes.
You chose to upgrade the office lighting LED bulbs to LED bulbs.
Yes, and I chose the dimmable option from the beginning. That is, sorry, could you ask again?
Yeah, that's investing. I mean, you were talking about, the whole reuse, reduce, recycle.
It is.
Then there clearly are some areas where it does make sense to make an investment.
Absolutely. And in this case, we're also talking about a place where we would have a continuing expense on this point anyways, because light bulbs do break, so we need to replace them. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a big bang replacement. It can be a gradual replacement if the company feels more about that. But one thing I also took into consideration with this particular choice was the whole comfortable component of the question. It was not just how can we make it more sustainable with regards to heat, it was also how can we make it more comfortable. And lighting and not having, light bulbs that not just beat down with bright lights, but also heat a lot, can be very uncomfortable, where the option to have both a cooler light and also a light that you can control in order to make a more comfortable lighting level for yourself is something that I've noticed that I appreciate, and that many of my colleagues appreciate in the office that I do share.
I'm noticing that when you're playing this, you are just factoring in so many more elements in your decision making than I at least did when I was playing this game earlier. I was like, okay, cost and consumption, those are the things I focus on. But everything you're saying here, of course, is incredibly relevant to make sure that the employees are also comfortable. And it's actually, I think, saying that in most of the introductions as well, that you should not interfere with the employees' happiness at work and their job satisfaction.
Yeah. I will say also, I have been doing this and nothing but this for 2 years now. I am probably a little environmentally marked by my work in how I think about these things. But
I think it's actually really inspiring that you are able to retain all of these different elements at the same time as having to make decisions in a real case. I think that's really, really cool.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Leif, what did you choose?
I don't really, cool office. I was thinking, don't pick that one. Don't pick that one. It's actually the totally opposite of Carolina. I was thinking green, right? I'm put on a woolen sweater and.
You just wanted to make sure that everybody put on a sweater when they went to work? That
Exactly.
was your solution?
I want to do something good for the world, not for the people. God damn it, for the dogs and cats and fishes and.
This would also be a good choice for me. I usually prefer cooler climates, and I love my sweaters.
I was just thinking what I was actually getting gamified. I was taking a choice I thought was very impactful, but apparently it wasn't. So not a good choice. So. So I'm sorry, everyone. I don't mean it. I'm not going to make their office cooler.
All right. Well, we have 10 minutes left, and I'm hoping I can ask you to whiz through the last chapter as well, which is now about transport, which we've also already talked a little bit about how do you travel, hybrid working, and so on. But the last part of this game is transport, as I mentioned, and it's about how big the carbon footprint the company is leaving, because there are actually a lot of company cars, and there are no green policies or initiatives or mile allowance in any hands, so that there's basically no green control over how far these cars go and how often. And the sort of the tough balancing act in here is this, okay, well, is it a shared responsibility or is it an individual choice? So what we also talked briefly about earlier, is it worth it for everybody to have to use electric car or a bicycle or some kind of more sustainable transport? Or is it actually the own person who's allowed to choose, no, I'm going to take my car to work so I can drop off my kids? And I think that's a really, really interesting topic to kind of dive into. Can we just update where you guys are here?
And it has that dilemma, right? It has really a dilemma in terms of knowing. It has this ambiguity in those two areas, like, and balance that is really difficult to balance, both as a workplace but also as a person, I think. And sometimes you will compromise on the green agenda, and sometimes you actually have to pay a cost, or I assume that you have to pay a cost. Both
and
on
Leif, as the leader here at Acti, you, I guess, have to make these calls now and then about, okay, what are we focusing on here? The happiness of our employees, or are we focusing on the sustainability, or on the effectiveness of the work, or which direction do you focus?
Yeah, I think as a person who is in charge of a workplace where it's important to know, I think it's a value thing, and it's part of our recruitment process that you actually have to align to these values, that we are in a workplace where we eat vegetables, we don't have meat, we don't have cans. All of that is like a thing that you need to comply to. And if you can't comply, if that's too much of a ethical compromise for you, you're probably not going to work with Acti. We are probably too much high on that agenda. So I think it's necessary to be clearly on the agenda as a workplace, and also, of course, be open towards the ambiguity and the problems that it potentially creates for people, of course. And in some cases, also be willing to compromise. Like, we are eating at a private place with somebody, and then that private person is not an active thing. There is meat on the table, and Leif have to shut up.
And that is the most difficult task that you're going to face this year, Leif.
Exactly. But that's like I know that there is plenty of compromises on this agenda. That's what I see. That people are paying a price. Of course, people love what they normally eat at home, and they would love to have that in the workplace too. I totally understand that. Yeah. Anything from the academic perspective, Caroline, on that one?
No, I think, like, I have had lunch at your company a couple of times with you all, and I think it's a great initiative, particularly also because you're not excluding all sorts of animal proteins completely. You do still have fish, which I think to some extent like removes the whole you feel like something's missing on the table on occasion. And the whole setting an example at work like that, like you're not stopping them from eating meat. They can bring it if they want, but they could also just eat it at home, and it's not going to make a terrible difference to them. They're still going to have a great lunch and great company with great discussions. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think for me it's also important to actually take the discussion and be openly arguing, like staying with the trouble kind of idea from Hathaway, which means that we sometimes need to acknowledge that we are different, that we have different perspectives, and for some it does have a cost to save the world. And I'm just willing to pay that cost, and I'm also willing to sacrifice my colleagues and my family on in that sense, not meaning sacrificing them, but sacrificing some of their wishes.
I feel like that escalated.
I'm like,
do you think so? It went a little bit out of control there. But
we need to take a private chat.
Yeah, like flying is one of them. We very often have a discussion: can we fly somewhere? No, we don't fly unless we have certain requirements. But we haven't flown since COVID, and that's for some a compromise. It would be really great to go to a fair somewhere in the world, and sometimes you could also justify it. But for saving the world, no, we don't. We don't go out to meetings. We don't drive out to meetings. We can do it online. It's better for the world. So but for personal reasons, you like to go to meet people in person. So I think sometimes people at Acti, employees at Acti, are having a sense of paying a cost.
Yeah. And I can see actually also on the results here that you have reduced consumption more than I have.
Oh, have I? I'm glad you say that. I'm so happy you say that.
Oh, he's gonna be so full of himself now, Caroline.
And you spent more money, Caroline. You spent more money than I did.
Yes, that's what we're seeing down here.
Yeah.
All
exactly.
right. But
nice.
It's always a little difficult with these barometer games if like who the clear winner is. But
the points, unfortunately, in this game, the points says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you could say either or because neither Caroline and I would know.
Yeah, but I think Caroline did. How many points did you get?
If the reduced cost barometer shows how much money you've spent and not how much money you've saved, in that case I would not have won, because I have significantly more points on that, and I would need to retract that in order to figure out if I won.
Yeah. And I have to say, I'm looking at the stats from the whole game, and you are on the 17. You still have 7 people above you. If you look at everybody,
the total view you are looking at?
Yeah, I'm looking at the total view there. So the top score has 222 points, and I am a little over halfway there, 67%, 76%. That means that I still have 33% to the top if I want to improve. So.
Oh yeah, but I can also see it's Thomas who's got the 222 points, and like, can we blame the CEO of the sustainability consultancy firm for being the one who wins the game?
No, and making the score.
Yeah.
He's not counting, and William is second, by the way. Who is his colleague? Okay, we are now. We have to acknowledge Bruno is third, which is really great. No, awesome.
All right. Well, I think that both of you are winners, if I'm allowed to say that without sounding like a complete cheese ball. But
I will take my participation trophy, like a good millennial.
Nice.
Then I will give you guys
a
little applause. You did a great job. Thank you so much for joining, Caroline. Your insights and expertise are so valuable to understand this game, and it at least made a lot of things sort of shake into place in my head. I'm thinking that a lot of the viewers had the same. I saw there was a really cool reflection from Maureen as well. But that was the sound. We have 30 seconds left. I wish we had 30 minutes. But thank you so much for joining, both of
Thank you
you.
for having me.
Live, congratulations on your win. And
That was not to me, that was to you, Caroline.
Thank you.
and thank you so much just for joining in on Tuesdays. We are, of course, here again next Tuesday, where we are also playing a super fun game. And you can, of course, keep updated on our LinkedIn, keep an overview of all of the events, and you can go look at previous event recordings as well. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful afternoon, everybody. Bye.
Bye.